Well, we've just come away. We're in the green room afterwards where we drink champagne and say hello to hookers. And
Gareth, do you want some cocaine, or can I just snort all of this?
No, you have all of that to yourself, Fred.
Thank you, brother.
That's what you're using the Patreon money for.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's good Patreon money.
So we're at the end here of episode 1 of the 3rd series, and we were just talking about walking simulators. And one of the things that Trolls brought up, which I thought was really interesting, but we were running out of time, so we just had to sort of ignore him, was this idea of being able to control where the story goes, and this idea that the character that you play has some kind of agency. And I was wondering whether actually in a computer game, whether that's necessary or whether it's something that we just kind of believe that we have, but actually we don't have any control over what goes on.
So, like instead of you actively progressing the story, just kind of letting the story happen to you?
Yeah.
Can we think of any examples of games that do that?
I've read of one, but I haven't played it. It's also a walking simulator called Dear Esther, where you're stuck on this island and you're uncovering letters from what may or may not be the protagonist to a woman called Esther. And you basically just walk around in the environment and you uncover. I'm getting increasingly vague because I've only read about it in broad terms, but it sounds very, very cryptic. And it doesn't sound like there is a finite answer, or maybe not even a definite story.
Interesting. The only thing I could think of was that, at least from the outset, the Space Quest games, the plots kind of happen to Roger Wilco, and he's not progressing the story as much as he's trying to sort of find his way out of it. He's more of the trapped character, whereas Gabriel Knight is actively hunting down the story with his talisman and his long overcoat and his polished flesh noodle.
Although, I mean, that's to do with the way that the narrative's constructed, but I think you as the player in those games feel like you're doing something, because I mean, even in Space Quest 1, where you have to do all this stuff because if you don't, you're going to die, but you have to work out what you have to do, and so you feel in yourself that you have some kind of agency in the sense of, if I don't do this properly, I'm going to die, so I need to work out how to do this so that I can move on to the next bit.
I would also say that in a game like Space Quest 4, at the very beginning, you just want to get out, but then Roger Wilco does get an agency as soon as he sees that Vohal has captured his son, and Vohal reveals that that is in fact your son during that scene. And at that point, you do get something that motivates you to kick the bad guy in the ass rather than just keep on escaping from him.
That's true. That's probably the first point in the entire series where that happens, really.
Yeah.
Although I suppose in Space Quest 3, you're kind of doing stuff.
Well, you stumble upon the two guys from Andromeda, and you choose to rescue them. And at that point, it goes back to escaping again. But at least you have a goal in kicking the Scumsoft guy's ass before you get out.
Wait a minute. Let's not confuse agency with motivation. I mean, I agree on your points, but if I'm reading Gareth correctly, even the instinct to survive, let's say the Arcada blowing up in Space Quest 1, you have agency in the sense that you want to survive this because otherwise the game will end prematurely and there's nothing else to experience because you are now dead. That implies agency on your behalf. The motivation, of course, is to not die. It was just the way that you were describing Gone Home that brought this up, just to sort of add some context. Was that you were talking about how you were almost this kind of disembodied spirit that was sort of going through the game, discovering stuff, but you didn't really feel like you were progressing. You were an active participant in the plot. Well. I wouldn't go so far because there is the rewarding aspect of Gone Home is to stumble upon this disjointed narrative, these diary pages that your little sister has left behind, which on the whole, I mean, to start off with, they're kind of disjointed. They're all over the place. They are in somewhat chronological order, depending on which ones you discover first, obviously, but they do progress chronologically as you move through the story, and the agency involved in that is to search every nook and cranny, because obviously the story gets interesting at some point and you want to know more about it. So there's agency in that. I am thinking, like, you could ostensibly have, I don't have an example of this, but you could ostensibly have a computer game where there is literally little to no interaction required on your part. Stuff will just happen to you. I'm thinking maybe something along the lines of The Last Express, where if you take out the actual interactive bit, because in The Last Express you have to be at certain locations at a certain time, otherwise you will miss crucial information. In that sense, the game is just, the story is just really happening to you because you happen to be in the right place, not because you, of your own volition, advance the story.
I'm reminded by the very beginning of the first Half-Life game, where you take the tram through the Black Mesa complex and you just see stuff happening. And at that point, you haven't been told that you're Gordon Freeman who's heading for an experiment. I don't know if it might have said that in the manual. You know, the Quake 2 manual included some backstory.
Is Gareth remodeling his home while we're talking?
I think he's feng shuiing that motherfucker. But
I think actually an ogre has returned to her abode, and she's
not pleased.
She's not pleased with your flesh noodle.
I think she's fine. I think she just doesn't want to listen.
Gareth.
The podcast.
Yeah, Gareth. She's fine.
I am safely ensconced, pantless, in my bedroom. I suggest you all do the same with your significant others. Sorry, Fred.
Yeah.
So I really didn't mean that to come off.
I have a flesh noodle.
God, I'm so sorry for bringing it down that path. Sorry.
No problem. Okay. I believe I was making a point before you brought up my relationship status.
Yes,
what point was I making? I was bringing up the very beginning of Half-Life, where you're taking this tram through this scientific complex and you see shit happening before your eyes, and you're just on this moving cart and you have no basic way to interact with this world other than walking back and forth. But you see robots, you see scientists walking about, you see little clues that something may not be well. What are they doing here? And you're very intrigued, and by the time you get off, you're basically just walking down a set path through this complex, and only then do you begin to fill in your own story that you're Gordon Freeman, you're late for this experiment that you're participating in, and then the whole thing basically just kicks off. But that beginning is a very nice piece of very non-interactive storytelling in an interactive medium.
Actually, Half-Life might be the first example of a walking simulator, at least up until the point where you get a gun. And you're absolutely right. That is where you have no agency other than getting from point A to point B, and then shit explodes around you.
The beginning of Half-Life 2, of course, outdid it beautifully.
I haven't played Half-Life 2. I am now Gareth.
No. Well, no. It's probably only the most popular video game of all time.
Well, yeah, but my machine won't run it, so fuck it. Now that I think about it, one game that I brought up during the show, the Beginner's Guide, that's as close as I'll say that you get to an experience where you have non-agency, where the game just flat out happens to you. It does instruct you to press some buttons at certain points, but it just literally, I mean, you could not have a bigger neon sign pointing towards that button there, dipshit. So it's really, I mean, the only agency required is that you're conscious, breathing, and able to use the mouse. That's about as non-agent as I could put.
That was a nice little discussion. I think we're done mostly because I seem to be losing my voice.
No, well, that's exactly 10 minutes as well. So I'll stop.
Oh,
okay, cool.